Stop reacting, start observing. Have you noticed how the same problems keep returning in your life? Why do the same things trigger you again and again? Here's the hidden truth. You can't fix a problem while being trapped inside it. The real transformation begins when you learn to observe yourself instead of being yourself. Neuroscience now confirms this. 3 separate studies show that this mental shift physically rewires the brain in visible, measurable ways. So what does that shift feel like? The instant you step back and watch your own thoughts and emotions, you leave your old reality and step into a field of new possibilities. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances, completely absorbed in their thoughts and emotions. They don't realize life happens on 2 levels, the one that's living and the one that's watching. Here's why this matters. Today, I'll reveal the neuroscience proving that observation alone can rewire your brain within minutes, a 5-step method to instantly activate witness awareness, and how mastering this state frees you from every limiting pattern. This isn't just a spiritual concept. Modern science shows that pure observation reshapes your brain in real time. Your problems persist only because you're identified with them. I'll show you how stepping into the observer restores your power. I want to share something that took me years to fully grasp. When I finally did, everything changed. The reason you keep repeating the same patterns, reacting to the same triggers, or drowning in familiar emotions isn't because you're broken or unlucky. It's about your position relative to your experience. Imagine saying, "I am anxious." In that moment, you become the anxiety. No distance, no air, no space. You and the anxiety are one. From there, escape feels impossible. You're locked inside the feeling, trying to run from your own skin. That's identification, the invisible cage most people live in, unaware there's a way out. But something extraordinary happens when you slightly shift your perspective. When you pause and realize, "I notice anxiety arising," suddenly 2 things exist: the anxiety and the one observing it. Feel the difference? One merges you with emotion. The other creates space around it. That small space changes everything. I remember the first time I experienced this shift. I was caught in my usual loop of worry when suddenly I stepped back in my mind and watched it unfold. It was as if my face had been pressed against a canvas, only seeing chaos, until I stepped back and saw the entire painting. The worry didn't vanish, but I wasn't its prisoner anymore. I was the awareness holding it, not the emotion being held. This is what I mean by the 2 simultaneous levels of existence. There's the character, living life, feeling, reacting, facing challenges. And there's the awareness observing it all, the experiencer and the witness. Most people spend life fused with the character, unaware the witness even exists. They believe they are their thoughts, emotions, and circumstances. When triggered, they mistake it for a personal attack. When emotion rises, they don't observe it, they become it. But here's the beautiful part. You can switch perspectives anytime. You can step out of the character and into the observer. From that higher point, everything changes. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt permanent is revealed as temporary. Think of it, it's like sitting in a movie theater. When you're inside the story, it's as if you're the actor on the screen, fully consumed by the plot, unaware that it's a film at all. But when you become the observer, you're in the audience, still moved by the story, still feeling every emotion, yet you know you're watching it unfold instead of being trapped within it. This shift, from being the character to being the witness, is what restores your power. Because the moment you can observe something, it loses control over you. An emotion you're merged with dictates your every move. But an emotion you're observing becomes simple information about your inner landscape. A thought you mistake for truth shapes your entire world. A thought you're aware of is just one possibility drifting through consciousness. The amazing paradox is that this transformation doesn't demand you to fix yourself, alter your situation, or become someone new. All it takes is a change in your relationship to experience itself, recognizing the awareness that's already watching everything unfold. But maybe you're wondering, does science actually back this up, or is it just spiritual talk? Before diving into the neuroscience, let's start with something practical. The next time a strong emotion rises, anger, fear, excitement, pause for 60 seconds and say aloud, "I notice emotion is present." Not "I am angry," but "I notice anger is present." Then watch closely. You'll sense an instant shift, a small space opening between you and the feeling. That gap is the return of your power. One simple sentence can transform your entire day. This 60-second exercise works because something real happens inside your brain. The science explaining why observation holds such power is astonishing. 3 neuroscientists have made groundbreaking discoveries, showing that self-observation can literally rewire your brain within minutes. You're not stuck with your mental patterns. When I first learned about the neuroscience behind all this, I felt deep relief and validation. For years, the witnessing practice felt abstract, something I couldn't explain to the logical side of my mind. But then I discovered researchers had been measuring the brain's response when we shift from identification to observation, and the findings were incredible. These results aren't theoretical. They're visible, measurable changes occurring in real time inside the brain. Knowing this gives you confidence that this isn't wishful thinking or spiritual escapism. It's a direct interaction with neural systems that can transform how your mind processes experience. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, a research psychiatrist at UCLA, studied people living with obsessive-compulsive disorder and made discoveries that apply to everyone. He found that when individuals simply watched their obsessive thoughts without acting on them, seeing them as mental events rather than unquestioned truths, through brain imaging, he observed neural pathways physically reshaping through focused attention alone. What struck me most was the timing. This wasn't about decades of therapy or endless meditation retreats. He saw measurable neural shifts within weeks, and sometimes even after a single session. He called this self-directed neuroplasticity, the idea that by choosing to observe rather than react, you become an active participant in rewiring your own brain. You're not waiting for something external to change you. You're engaging your mind's built-in power to restructure itself through awareness. Then there's Dr. Richard Davidson from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, whose research reshaped our understanding of emotional regulation. Using fMRI scans, he examined what happens in the brain when people practice witnessing their emotions instead of being carried away by them. What he discovered was remarkable. When you observe an emotion instead of becoming it, the prefrontal cortex, the brain region tied to higher reasoning, perspective, and emotional balance, lights up with increased activity. This is important because it shows that witnessing isn't just a psychological trick or a way to suppress feelings. It activates an entirely different neural network, one that empowers you to respond consciously instead of reacting automatically. When you're merged with an emotion, the amygdala, your brain's built-in alarm system, takes over. But when you shift into the observer, you awaken the prefrontal regions capable of holding emotional energy without being consumed by it. You are quite literally changing which part of your brain leads the moment. Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist exploring meditation and consciousness, uncovered another key piece of this mystery. His studies show that practices involving self-observation and meta-awareness, that ability to know that you are aware, actually reduce activity in the amygdala, the center responsible for fear and stress. Even more striking, these neural changes happen fast. People new to witnessing practices displayed measurable drops in amygdala reactivity after only a few sessions. This proves that the observer state isn't just psychologically distinct from identification, it's neurologically distinct. Your brain operates in an entirely different mode, activating new regions and forming unique patterns of connectivity. And the more often you enter observer consciousness, the easier and more natural it becomes for your brain to access it again. What amazes me most about this research is how it validates what ancient wisdom traditions have taught for millennia. The teachings about pure awareness weren't just poetic ideas. They were early descriptions of a genuine neurological capacity within us all. Now science gives us tools to see, measure, and understand exactly how it functions. So now that you grasp the neuroscience, the next question is, how do you activate this observer state when you need it most? I'm going to walk you through a 5-step process that can shift you from reacting to observing in real time, something you can start practicing today. With both the concept and the science clear, you're probably wondering how to apply this during intense moments, when emotions are high and you feel completely swept away. What I'm about to share is the precise method I use myself, and have taught to countless others who've found it deeply transformative. What makes this approach powerful is its simplicity. You can remember it even under stress, yet it's profound enough to truly alter how you experience life. The first step is to notice identification as it happens. This means catching yourself in the very moment you've become fused with your thoughts or feelings. The biggest clue is in your internal language. Whenever you think or say, "I am anxious," "I am angry," "I am stuck," or "I'm not enough," you've collapsed your entire identity into a temporary state. In that instant, you are the anxiety, the anger, the limitation. That's the trap. And the path to freedom begins the moment you recognize it. Don't criticize yourself for doing it. Everyone does. Just start noticing. You may catch it right away or hours later when reflecting on your day. Either way, that simple act of noticing is where transformation begins. You're developing what I call pattern recognition, the ability to spot your automatic habits of identification as they happen. Once you've caught the moment of identification, step 2 is to create the gap. This is where the magic begins, and it's surprisingly simple. You shift your inner language from "I am" to "I notice." Instead of saying "I am anxious," you reframe it to "I notice anxiety is present" or "I notice anxious thoughts arising." Feel the difference? In the first, you and the emotion are merged. In the second, there's space, a you who observes and an emotion being observed. Two elements where before there was only one. This small linguistic shift might seem trivial, but it sparks a genuine psychological, even neurological change. You're activating the observer consciousness, engaging new neural circuits, and stepping back from the immediacy of emotion. Sometimes I make it more specific. I notice tightness in my chest and thoughts about tomorrow's meeting. This deeper description anchors you firmly in the observer position, describing what you see rather than drowning in it. Step 3 is watching without judgment. This is where many people slip, because we're conditioned to label everything as good or bad, right or wrong. But the witness doesn't judge, it simply sees. When you notice anxiety, anger, or sadness, practice observing it like clouds drifting across the sky. You don't judge the clouds. You just watch them move. Bring that same neutral attention to your internal weather. This doesn't mean denying what you feel or pretending it doesn't matter. It means holding the experience in awareness without the extra layer of criticism that intensifies pain. If you catch yourself judging, "I shouldn't feel this way," or "this is bad," gently redirect your attention to observation. Ask, "What does this feel like in my body? What thoughts are present? What's the texture of this moment?" Stay curious instead of critical. Step 4 takes you deeper into pure awareness. Ask yourself, who is observing these thoughts? Who is noticing these emotions? This single question reveals something profound. If you can observe your thoughts, you are not your thoughts. If you can witness emotion, you are not that emotion. There's a deeper awareness doing the observing, more constant and unchanging than anything passing through your mind. For some, this question opens a sense of vast stillness. For others, a quiet recognition of something steady beneath all change. You don't need to answer it perfectly. The act of asking shifts you into the witness, pointing you toward the awareness that has always been silently watching. Step 5 is to embody the power of the observer by acting from it. This is where the practice moves from inner insight to outer behavior. When you're rooted in observer consciousness, you respond instead of react. You might feel anger rising. You acknowledge it, observe it, and then choose calm communication over impulsive outburst. You might notice anxiety before a decision and still move forward with clarity rather than fear. This doesn't mean detachment or numbness. It means intention. You act consciously instead of compulsively, with awareness rather than autopilot. Over time, this becomes second nature, and you'll find yourself responding from. Now you have the full 5-step process. To help it integrate automatically, try this simple nightly reflection. Before bed, take 2 minutes to write down 3 moments from today where you reacted unconsciously. Just 3. No judgment, only awareness. Next to each one, rewrite it from the witness point of view. For example, "I got frustrated in traffic" becomes, "I notice frustration arising about traffic." This brief practice trains your brain to default into observer mode. Do it for just 3 days and you'll start catching reactions in real time. With consistent reflection, something remarkable begins to happen. You start recognizing reactivity faster and faster until you reach what I call the breakthrough state. Here's that breakthrough. When you master witnessing, emotions and events no longer control you. There comes a point where something deep inside shifts, and I want you to recognize it when it happens. It's not that emotions vanish or life becomes effortless. It's that your entire relationship to experience transforms in a way that's hard to describe until you've tasted it yourself. The true breakthrough arrives when you realize, not intellectually but experientially, that nothing has power over you while you're watching it. not because you're suppressing, denying, or ignoring it, but because the simple act of observation creates natural freedom. When you're merged with anger, it dominates you completely, shaping your words, decisions, and even your perception of the world. But when you watch anger move through you, your autonomy returns. You can feel its intensity, notice the thoughts it sparks, sense its sensations in the body, and still decide how to respond. I remember the first time I experienced this during a relationship that had always triggered deep insecurity. For years, certain behaviors from that person would send me spiraling, defensive, anxious, desperate to control the outcome. But after months of practicing the observer protocol, something new happened. The familiar trigger appeared, but I saw it immediately. I watched insecurity try to take hold, noticed the thoughts forming, felt the tightening in my chest, and yet I remained free. The emotion was there, fully alive, but it no longer ruled me. I could feel it without becoming it. This is true mastery. Not escaping emotion, but discovering the part of you untouched by it. Witness consciousness is inherently steady. It observes storms without breaking. It feels turbulence without being swept away. Every emotion, thought, and event becomes information, not identity, something that moves through you, not something that defines you. The most liberating part of this state is that you stop trying to fix yourself through force. You've likely spent years attempting to think more positively, feel more confident, or eliminate anxiety through willpower, and seen how draining and ineffective that can be. The real breakthrough comes when you realize you don't need to change your thoughts or emotions. You just need to change your relationship with them. When you observe anxiety instead of being anxiety, its hold weakens, not because you've fought it, but because you've stopped fueling it with identification, and the shift expands beyond emotions into life situations. Challenges that once felt overwhelming, a tense conversation, financial strain, uncertainty about the future, become workable when you can observe your reaction instead of drowning in it. This practice cultivates what psychologists call mental flexibility, the ability to stay present with difficulty without being defined by it. The ultimate result of mastering the witness state is a kind of inner invincibility. Not that pain or hardship disappear, but that nothing can trap you in unconscious reactivity. You always have access to the part of yourself that can step back and see, and from that vantage point, you always have choice. This breakthrough reveals a profound truth about how consciousness interacts with reality, what I call the reality observation effect. Your sustained attention doesn't just perceive reality, it reshapes your perception and alters what you experience. And here's the surprising part. The principle is incredibly simple. Where you place your attention determines what you perceive, and what you perceive becomes your lived reality. This isn't mysticism or wishful thinking. It's how your brain naturally operates. Understanding this changes everything about how you engage with life. Every second, your brain receives far more sensory data than it can consciously handle. Sounds, sensations, colors, movements. Yet you notice only a sliver of it. Your attention acts like a spotlight, illuminating parts of experience while leaving the rest in darkness. Neuroscience shows this is not passive. Focused attention strengthens the neural pathways linked to what you notice, while unused ones weaken over time. This means that when you consistently direct awareness from the observer state rather than reactive identification, if your mind habitually scans for threats or problems, your perception becomes wired to find them. You'll notice every risk, every slight, every obstacle, because your attention has trained your brain to expect them. But when you practice observing with curiosity instead of defense, your perception shifts. You begin to notice nuance, possibility, and the quiet positive elements that were always present but filtered out by reactivity. Here's the fascinating part. Your brain doesn't record reality like a camera. It constructs it through patterns and predictions built on where your attention has been. When you shift from identified to observer consciousness, you activate entirely different neural networks. The observer state engages prefrontal regions responsible for emotional regulation and broad perspective, while the identified state triggers primitive survival systems that narrow perception and intensify threat response. This creates a powerful feedback loop between consciousness and experience. When you live from observer awareness, you perceive greater freedom and possibility in situations that once felt closed. And because your perception changes, your responses change. Those new responses generate new outcomes, which further reinforce the observer state. You're not magically manifesting a different external world, you're interacting with the same reality in a fundamentally new way. And that shift in how you engage with life transforms everything, your lived experience. I've seen this play out in my own life again and again. There was a time when I truly believed I was surrounded by critical, judgmental people. Everywhere I turned, I seemed to encounter negativity and disapproval. But as my observer practice deepened, something unexpected occurred. I began to notice the same people showing warmth, curiosity, and even genuine care. Those qualities had always been there. My attention, filtered through defensiveness, just couldn't perceive them. As my inner lens changed, so did my responses, and soon, my relationships felt entirely different. Not because anyone else had transformed, but because I was finally seeing the complete picture of what was already there. This is why fighting against your current reality rarely brings change. True transformation happens when you observe your relationship with reality instead of resisting it. When you battle what is, you reinforce the very neural loops and mental filters that created limitation to begin with. You're operating from reactivity, from identification, from that narrow view that can only find what's wrong. But when you enter observer consciousness, you engage a different part of your brain, one capable of seeing with perspective, clarity, and compassion. You're not dismissing hardship or pretending challenges don't exist. You're placing them within a larger field that includes choice, growth, and the power to respond differently. The deeper truth is that transformation doesn't start by changing outer conditions. It begins by changing the quality of awareness you bring to those conditions. That shift in consciousness naturally reshapes perception, which alters how you respond, which in turn produces new outcomes in your lived experience. This is how attention transforms reality itself, and understanding that opens a simple yet powerful way to start every day. Instead of beginning in reaction, you can begin as the conscious observer the moment you wake. Tomorrow morning, before you reach for your phone, sit up and say aloud, "Today, I am the witness. I observe my thoughts. I notice my emotions. I choose my responses." Repeat it 3 times and feel the change in your energy. This half-minute ritual sets your awareness to observer mode for the entire day. You'll find yourself calmer, more present, and aligned with flow, as if reality itself moves in harmony with you. As we reach the close of this journey, take a breath and let everything we've explored settle within you. The shift from reactor to observer isn't another trick or tool. It's a profound reorientation of how you experience being human. You are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your circumstances. You are the awareness that perceives them all. The instant you move from being lost in your story to watching the story unfold, new possibilities open, and reality reorganizes in real time. This understanding changes everything because it reveals that you are never truly stuck. No matter how strong an emotion, how persistent a thought, or how heavy a situation feels, there's always a part of you that can step back and see. That witnessing capacity is your natural inheritance, your refuge and your strength. It's always been there, quietly waiting for you to remember. When you master the witness state, nothing can imprison your mind again. Now you hold 3 practical tools: the 60-second observer test for emotions, the evening reflection journal to deepen awareness, and the morning declaration to set your daily vibration. Start with one. Whichever feels most natural is the right one for you. You don't need to do all 3 or do them perfectly. If you learn best through direct experience, begin with the 60-second test. If you prefer introspection, try the evening journal. If you love ritual and renewal, choose the morning declaration. Trust your intuition. There's no wrong path. And here's something beautiful. Share in the comments which practice you're choosing to begin today. Doing so anchors accountability, and I'll personally respond to support your journey. Plus, when others commit alongside you, a kind of quantum resonance forms, a shared field of awareness amplifying the effect for everyone. Your journey from reactor